We don't know much about the humans, still to this day. They're enemies of our illustrious empire for sure, as they have joined the fight against us roughly 10 Earth months ago. The first battle showed us something. They're very, very strong for their size. Surprisingly quick, too. It's amazing how fast they can move with such dense musculature, and the fact that they can suddenly change on just a tiny little speck of land, their movements, is pretty obvious and ominous considering how quickly they change their battle plans. It seems as though they're simply going off on their own, individuals fighting individually. It's odd. Once we counter, they charge, or once we charge, they counter. They're extremely mobile on this. The humans have a word for this: adapt. We have learned this, as we found a few humans still alive, many of them not speaking much. But when we bring up our questions, they always say this word, adapt. They do this to overcome our forces. Adapt and overcome, they always say. And they do this incredibly fast. Their armor also keeps changing. It's incredibly adaptable. We have found out that their endoskeleton is extremely resilient to anything we can hit them with. And the exoskeleton they have is extremely durable, extremely hard, and extremely adaptable. Certain types are obviously specific. If you see one that has a lot of weight on its back and a large gun strapped under one of the arms, duck. It is going to spray a whole bunch of ballistic ammo your way. Others have certain items on them that let you know exactly what they're going to do. However, all the rest constantly change. Because of this, you would think there's no actual constants inside their military. But there are a few. One of them is how they love fire. So much fire. They enjoy it so much, they just want to burn or suffocate you, make sure you die screaming. They give off this strange sound whenever this happens. They call it laughter. It is a horrific sound once you've heard it. It will make everything turn cold in your blood, your organs, and everything. When you hear it, you know one of two things. Either you know they have total control of the area, or you know they have absolutely no control over the area or themselves, seemingly, especially in melee combat. They come at you, burning everything in the way. Anyone still alive is simply crushed or beaten or ripped apart before an area will simply explode sometimes. It is crazy. Yet they laugh. They always say, you can't spell slaughter without laughter. When we finally translated this line, we suddenly realized that they were horrific creatures, a warrior race. Not only that, but we could tell that they loved blood. They loved blood so much as they loved to hit us with a ballistic handheld cannon that is simply massive. It is roughly the size of one of their arms, maybe one of their legs, and they seem to use it very close. So much so that one of ours being struck by this would simply explode as the front of their torso would go up. It didn't matter what species it was. Sometimes a carapace would simply blow up, spraying blood all over. Others would have their torsos blown open, their appendages blown off, and this would spray blood everywhere. They would also spray blood over themselves as they came in cutting and ripping, anything to get the blood all over themselves. They seem to love the blood, yet they seem to hate blood. You can always see them afterwards if you get a good look. They're always wiping the blood off the sharpened spikes that they all seem to carry, all of them, before returning them to their original location. They would always seemingly stop and wipe blood off those strange ballistic cannons. It seemed to upset them as they would simply start spouting some sort of verbiage in the air, most of which was inconsequential to what the matter at hand was. But still, it seemed as though they hated the blood, but they loved it. Though nothing was more confusing than their words, or, I should say, lack thereof. What little human speak there is, we break down into very few words. One word seems universal. They seem to speak it in different tones and different amalgamations of this word. Every different way of saying it can relay some sort of joy, a hate, a command, a call for help, or anything about it, but you would always hear this word in some way, shape, or form being used. Small phrases may not contain this word. However, if you hear them, you know you're in trouble. A few examples of this. If you hear, frag out, that means you're about to explode. Incoming! Everyone is about to explode. Fire mission. Something far away is about to explode. Shake and bake. You're going to explode, and then you're going to burn. Out of all the phrases that humans ever said, one confused us the most. The humans, at this point, couldn't push us back. At least, not at once. They could push their way into one of our lines, break our lines on one planet, yet we would be pushing forward in another area where there was no humans, and simply meant that there was a stalemate. This meant that it looked like the war seemed to have no end in sight. Dozens of planets are burning on the front lines. Entire sectors have massive firefights. Human artillery just did not stop. It was always firing somewhere. Rest is non-existent on the front lines. The artillery is used constantly to harass us, to shake our locations, making sure that we cannot get adequate rest. We always know that as the artillery gets closer, the humans are getting ready to get very close and personal. Even in space, the human navy is just reaching the front. When they do, you know it's them, as their ships are simply covered in weapons. From one end to the other, there is not a single area that you could approach that you are not facing down one of their cannons. They seem unstoppable whenever they join the battle, but there is just far too few to break through the lines. And even if they do break through the lines, that meant that the humans are not somewhere else, and we could again push on. The front line was in a little bit of flux, but it was still a stalemate everywhere. It didn't matter if it was on the planet, outside the planet, through the entire sector. It didn't matter. Yet through it all, it seemed the humans would not stop shooting, even if they would simply send some sort of projectile randomly towards us. Whether it hit anything or not, it didn't matter. They were constantly harassing us, just enough to piss us off, but not enough where we were stupid enough to charge their guns. And as this went on, we wondered if the humans would ever stop, as they had sent ordnance at us for every single hour that the Great Maker sends. We wonder if the rumors that these humans are pursuit predators, ones who just continually push until their prey simply break, is true. If that's true, we wonder how long we can maintain under the constant barrage. Across several planets, the winter is in full effect now. Just like everywhere else, the denseness of the winter itself, whether it be from the actual cold of the air or whatever might be falling down on the ground to make it difficult for everything to move, whether it's vehicle or personnel, everything simply slows down. We thought maybe Maybe the humans would stop, but no, they wouldn't. It gave time for everyone, though, to prepare for battle behind the lines, as very few pushes were made, as you didn't want to be exposed in this type of terrain and weather. Then one day, suddenly, without warning, the cannons fell silent. Everywhere was confused. We checked the details. We started going over. No planetary movements. Were they massing for something? We checked the fleet movements. Nothing. All their fleets were still holding position. But everything was just quiet. Why was it quiet? We braced for an attack as we believed that they would immediately start pushing across the lines. Nothing. We waited, but nothing. Everyone was on edge, but for the first time, the cannons were not roaring. And then we received a message. A message in every single known language across the entire universe. A message sent across the void to every ship, planet, soldier, and sailor out there. A message that we had to wonder, what was it about? Why were they sending it? We immediately started doing research, and we found out that this would be a single moment of peace in a war without end. At first, Command didn't believe it and didn't want to share this, but it was too late. The message was sent out to everyone. And as this message has just reached us, we replied with the same message back to the humans that had sent it. And it's a message that I gladly share with you all. Merry Christmas.